There is absolutely no reason to be concerned about DJ Lagway.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. As always, I am your host, Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by TurboTax. If you're ready for stress-free taxes and the most money back guaranteed, head over to TurboTax.com and get matched with your tax expert. And we're talking about DJ Lagway today because, unfortunately, we have to. I know that right before the start of fall camp, Billy Napier said, hey, DJ Lagway is limited this spring or to start the spring with, quote unquote, some lower body, some shoulder. And I mean, first off, what the rivals said and what the rivals troll about, I don't care. I think I've been very open. Rivals, I don't respect them, right? I don't respect them. I don't care what they say. Really couldn't care less about what they said. But I do think that it's important to acknowledge from the Florida fan side of things, right? And so that's what we're talking about. I don't care about, like the fan base with the quarterback that's throwing with his left hand. I don't care about them. But Billy Napier at the start of spring ball said DJ Lagway will be limited in spring practice with some lower body, some shoulder. And a lot of Florida Gators fans, on top of that, got concerned, right? And I will tell you what I have been told from multiple people. Now at this point, it's not a singular source. It's reached out to quite a few people about this. And everybody's told me basically the same thing, right? Everybody that I've spoken to about DJ Lagway, and I didn't ask for details. I don't care about details like that. I also realize that, sharing those details doesn't exactly help anybody. But I did reach out to a few people just about DJ Lagway and if there's any concern or a little bit more information about it. And from what I was told, it was basically DJ's fine. That this is more precautionary than anything else. And that if they had a game this weekend, he'd be playing it. I'm good then. I just don't think that there's any reason for Florida Gators fans to be concerned about that at this point. Just because if there were a game, if there were something that DJ Lagway was needed for, then we'd be able to just see him play and that would be fine. So it's not a big concern. And so for me, I just don't care about it, honestly, at this point. I don't care to discuss what happens if he misses significant time, because from the way that things have been explained to me, doesn't matter. Basically, from the way that things have been explained to me is that he's fine, he will be fine, and he will continue to be fine. And I wanted to then hear, or I wanted to then bring up another point about DJ Lagway's health questions, if you want to call it that. We have seen a lot, which also, I'm sorry, let me also clarify this. Said some lower body, some shoulder. We can assume that, hey, it's some stuff carrying over from last season. We can assume that it was DJ Lagway's hamstring that bothered him for the second half of the season, really. We can assume anything. And you can assume and feel good about something, about just getting that answer. But something that I think is more important is doing a little bit of your own fact finding, right? Which I've said multiple times. I encourage everybody, like, if you disagree with me, that's fine, as long as, you have it backed up for good reason, as long as if you feel like better information, whatever it may be, that's fine. I know not how many Florida Gators fans are on social media, but I do know that there are a lot of Florida Gators fans on social media. I know that there are a lot of Florida Gators fans, and even if you're not on social media, you might know someone that's on social media, and they might be sending you clips. They might be showing you what's happening in practice. Media gets about 15 minutes every practice, and in those 15 minutes, they post a lot of clips, right? They put a lot of clips online. Some are good throws, some are bad throws. Regardless, they post a lot of clips. And you can see in those clips DJ Lagway running with the team. You can see in those clips DJ Lagway warming up. You're not going to see DJ Lagway throwing much in those clips, but also, again, 15 minutes of media availability and then a bunch of indoor practice. So you may not see DJ Lagway doing a ton in those clips, right? But what you have seen this whole offseason and what you have seen since the start of spring ball is you've seen DJ Lagway running. All offseason, we saw the hype videos, right? Where we saw DJ Lagway lifting, hitting the bench, doing a lot, right? We also saw something from DJ Lagway that I do think really answers any concerns about his shoulder, which is that we saw videos of this offseason of DJ Lagway doing pull-ups. I'm no doctor, clearly, but what I can say is that I don't think if someone had a bad enough shoulder injury where there should be concern about them throwing the ball or concern about, hey, he can't throw a football. We'll say that. If there were any world in which someone said, hey, he can't throw a football right now, I don't think that same player would be doing pull-ups. I don't think that same player would be doing push-ups. I don't know. Unless other information comes out other than Billy Napier saying, hey, he's going to be limited in spring ball or to start spring ball with some lower body, some shoulder. I have no reason to believe that there's any justification behind the concern of his health or durability. So for me, I look at it and I just say, all right, I really don't care at this point. There's no reason for me to be concerned. So I'm simply not going to be. That's just me. That's what I've been told. That's what I've seen. That's how I will relay things to you. And again, what I tell you is my version of the information. If you feel like there's a more reputable source or more reputable anybody giving you other information and you want to trust them, go ahead. Fine by me. But from what I've seen and from what I've been told, not concerned. However, with all that being said, I do think that it's important talking about backup quarterback just because we did see injuries during the season. And Florida made some moves to shore up their backup quarterback spot. We'll talk about that when we get back with Locked On Gators. This is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now, Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today, March 12th. That's what we're talking about. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. All so you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worrying. Now, this is Taxes. Get an expert now at TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free. We have this in the podcast and on YouTube. And like I said, we are going to talk about the backup quarterback situation. This is the thing I touched on a little bit yesterday when talking about Tramel Jones. I think that the way Florida is going to approach backup quarterback is open competition. Maybe a couple guys start ahead of another couple guys. But for the most part, I do think this is going to be an open competition. And so whoever impresses the most will be DJ's primary backup, right? And after last year, just the injuries that piled up. Like last year, we saw 2 starter quality quarterbacks get injured and miss time. Graham Mertz, of course, tore his ACL against Tennessee and missed the remainder of the season and is still not fully healthy yet, as he's been going through the pre-draft process. Potentially for the pro day, he'll be able to make some throws at least, but no clue about that recovery timetable. And then DJ Lagway got hurt against Georgia, missed the Texas game, then came back and was clearly not healthy for the remainder of the season. So we've seen Florida go to QB3, right? Who's Aidan Warner, who will be in this quarterback 2 competition. And I will say this as well, should absolutely be in the quarterback 2 competition. I think Florida right now, you've got Harrison Bailey, who was at Tennessee, then UNLV, and then Louisville. You got Harrison Bailey as your backup that you brought in from the transfer portal this year. You've got Aidan Warner, who came in last year from Yale, redshirt freshman transfer walk-on quarterback from Yale. You've got Tramel Jones, true freshman quarterback. And then you got Clay Millen, who was at Colorado State, got injured, didn't get the starting job back, hit the portal, came to Florida, was QB4 last year. And I think that that's what you look at when you say this is the quarterback 2 competition, right? I don't think any of the walk-ons are actually going to be in this battle other than Aidan Warner potentially. I do know that the staff likes Aidan Warner and his mentality, his character, how he carries himself. I do know that they like that from him. Tramel Jones missed most of his senior season with an injury, but he has been cleared. Billy Napier said he's not 100%, but that he's going to be able to throw and do basically everything. He's just going to be doing everything while he himself is 75, 80%, not 100%. Clay Millen, honestly, I think that a lot of people, myself included, kind of expected Clay Millen to enter the transfer portal after that during that first transfer portal window after the 2024 season. I wouldn't rule it out that it's still a possibility after spring of this year, but Clay Millen is going to be in that competition as well, and should, by the way, he's got production from Colorado State. Just for whatever reason, last year just didn't seem to gel. He didn't look bad in the spring game either. I will say that as well. He didn't look bad in the spring game in 2024, but for some reason, when Aidan Warner was healthy, Aidan Warner surpassed him on the depth chart. And Harrison Bailey is the guy that was brought in to be QB2. I do think will ultimately end up being QB2. And I think that that's deserved as well. I know that there's going to be people who see clips of Tramel Jones. I think Tramel Jones is a better overall thrower of the football. I'll be honest. I think that when you look at the quarterback room outside of DJ Lagway, I think Tramel Jones is the best overall just thrower of the football. However, quarterback being the most important position in all of sports, being what I believe is the most difficult position in all of sports, a lot more goes into it than just who's the best overall thrower of the football, right? We would see a lot of these 4 and 5-star quarterbacks work out. We'd see a lot more of them work out if it was just, hey, can you spin it? Sure. But that's not all it comes down to, right? So I do think that Harrison Bailey, having the in-college experience, I don't like saying that he's a very experienced quarterback because while he's been in college for 5 years, has not thrown the ball a lot. He hasn't played a lot. He's been a backup the overwhelming majority of his college football career. I do think that his bowl game against Washington, I think that performance was good enough for me to say, hey, probably a pretty good candidate for QB2. Genuinely. I don't think he's got an amazing arm. I don't think he's got all the arm talent in the world that you've seen from guys like DJ Lagway. But that's also not what he's being brought in here to do, right? Harrison Bailey is being brought in here to be quarterback 2 in the event of an injury sustained to DJ Lagway, which I will knock on wood right now. But Harrison Bailey's brought in to be QB2. And I can't stress this enough that I talk about this all the time with backup quarterback. And backup quarterback is kind of the only position I really talk about like this, where I say, I don't care if you're great, right? Backup quarterback, I just need you to be someone that if you come into the game, you will be composed. You won't get shell-shocked, which we saw Aidan Warner get shell-shocked against both Georgia and Texas. That's not me saying he's awful. It's not me bashing him for it. He should have been shell-shocked against Georgia and Texas. Aidan Warner came to Florida as a redshirt freshman, transfer, walk-on quarterback from Yale, and then got thrown into competition against Georgia and Texas. He should have been shell-shocked. If he didn't get shell-shocked, a team probably would have gone, hey, all right, like if you're going to play with that level of moxie, come on into the portal, we'll pay you. Like that's how okay it was that he got shell-shocked. He should have been. So I think Harrison Bailey could come in and not be shell-shocked. I think that what he did for Louisville against Washington in the bowl game was enough, right? He was efficient. He didn't make mistakes. He kept the offense on schedule. He kept the offense on time. That is what I care about in a QB2, right? The big knock I would give on Harrison Bailey is I don't think he's very mobile. Made a couple plays against Washington, but I don't think he's very mobile. But as far as just being able to keep the offense on track, I think he could do that. Aidan Warner needs a bit more experience. Aidan Warner needs a bit more composure, I guess we'd say. But he's another one that I think that if he's QB2, I'm okay with it. I'm not going to fault you for anything that happened in 2024. I can't, because he's still young. He's a redshirt sophomore at this point. He's got a lot of college football in front of him. Clay Millen, again, the odd man out for me. Tramel Jones, I wouldn't expect there. Like I said yesterday, like I expect him to redshirt even if he does earn QB2. I expect him to redshirt again. And by that, I mean, even if he's QB2, we're going to, again, knock on wood, hope for no injuries. But that ideally QB2 doesn't play, right? So Tramel Jones, even if he is QB2, I expect him to redshirt. And if he's not QB2, then I would say he's definitely going to redshirt, unless, again, injuries pile up the same way they did last year. But I do think that he's the guy that, out of Harrison Bailey, out of Aidan Warner, out of Clay Millen, and then Tramel Jones actually brings at least a better level of mobility. I don't think he's a fantastic athlete. I don't think he's a great scrambler. I don't think he's a great designed runner. I do think he's a pretty good scrambler, though, and I think that's where he can extend plays and make a throw. And I think that he's a interesting thing for a high school quarterback is that similar to something DJ Lagway did, which is when he scrambles, he's looking to throw the ball still. He's not scrambling and going, okay, like now's my time to take off running. He's scrambling and looking to still throw the ball. And that's something that usually more experienced quarterbacks do. So that's my favorite thing about Tramel Jones is that he does that. And if you can extend a play and make a throw, usually you're going to pick up an even bigger gain if you can actually extend the play and make a throw, because that's when coverage breaks down. Things just get crazy at that point. So QB2, likely Harrison Bailey. I do think it's going to be an open competition. And with DJ Lagway limited, we'll say, I think that competition is wide open and there's more reps available for it. So I'm interested to see what happens with that. We're going to talk basketball to wrap up today's episode of Locked On Gators. Looking to optimize your nutrition this year. I don't know if you know this. About 3 months away from summer. Just saying. Factor makes eating well easy with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that are fresh, never frozen, and ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences every week, you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle. Whether it's calorie smart, protein plus, or keto, which I will say this. Protein plus, what I eat on days that I work out. Keto, what I eat on days I don't work out. It's my carb cycling there. It's beautiful, right? Like I love Factor. I love, especially right now, it's free agency time. So I'm kind of working just throughout the whole day and then doing my show at night. It's crazy. I don't want to cook. I'll just go heat up a Factor meal. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50 off and use code lockedoncollege50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping at with code lockedoncollege50 off at factormeals.com. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free. We're in the podcast and on YouTube. And the Florida Gators got a double bye in the SEC tournament, which is big for a team that has had a bunch of little dings, we'll say, I guess, as far as any, I don't like saying injuries. I don't want to say injuries. I feel like that sounds like, there's genuine cause for concern. But the SEC tournament starts today, and the 4 double byes go to Florida, Auburn, Tennessee, and Alabama. Not surprising. They're kind of 4 of the top, 6 or 7 teams in the country right now. Not surprising that they're in there. Then there's the 4 teams that have a bye: Ole Miss, A&M, Missouri, Kentucky. And all the teams playing in the first round: South Carolina, Arkansas, Texas, Vanderbilt, LSU, Mississippi State, Oklahoma, and Georgia. So the way that this works out for Florida is that today at 7 p.m. Eastern time, LSU and Mississippi State will face off. Okay? So LSU, Mississippi State face off today at 7 Eastern time. Game's probably going to be a bit of a doozy. Not going to lie to you. But the winner of that game will face Missouri tomorrow. The winner of that game will face Missouri tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern time. I feel like that game, I feel like Mississippi State's going to win that one. I feel like Mississippi State's a better team. And granted, most of this is me basing it off of how they played against Florida. But I feel like I look at LSU as like maybe making the tournament, if that. I don't think they're a great team. And I look at Mississippi State as obviously they're going to go in. So Mississippi State should win that game. Their offense is at least acceptable. Their defense is at least acceptable. And LSU's kind of been a mess at large parts of the season. They especially ended the season on they won 3 games going into the Florida game, and then they lost against Florida, and then they lost out the rest of the season. So LSU, not exactly hot right now, right? So I don't think they're going to be great. Mississippi State will then face, if Mississippi State wins, or we'll just say whoever wins between LSU and Mississippi State, will face Missouri, which Missouri, one of Florida's few losses this year, because Florida has only lost to Kentucky, Missouri, Tennessee, and Georgia. And that Missouri one was a heartbreaker. We can be honest about it. I was very upset about it. I thought that game was just bad, right? Like just bad basketball on Florida's part for a large chunk. We talked about how there were too many times where you just went ghost. We talked about those stretches that just didn't work out. We talked about certain guys have to be more aggressive at certain points in the game and kind of take over a little bit. But this is also a team that is different from the mid-late January team that played against Missouri, right? Like Missouri at that time, that's when Missouri was getting hot. Because when Missouri beat Florida, that was kind of their moment where it's like, oh, wait, Missouri might actually be a pretty damn good team, right? Because they beaten LSU and Vanderbilt, and you went, okay, first off, they lost to Auburn in the SEC. Then they beat LSU and Vanderbilt, and then they beat Florida. And that was the point where it's like, oh, so they might actually be legit, right? And they had their ups and downs from that point, including beating Alabama in a crazy game. But Missouri's the team where I look at them and I say, on paper, Florida should have beaten them, right? Like I look at this game and I go, okay, well, Florida will face either Missouri, LSU, or Mississippi State. Florida has beaten LSU and Mississippi State. By the way, this game would happen on Friday at 7 Eastern time, 7 p.m. Eastern time. So all these games in this bracket are 7 p.m. Eastern time. That's how it works, right? All the noon games are in that same bracket. All of the games following the noon games are in that bracket. All the games following those games are in the same bracket. And so that's how it just works in this tournament. So you'll see teams playing at the same time. It's not like one team's going to play late at night and then the next day at noon. That's not really how it plays out there. So Florida will face the winner of Missouri versus LSU, Mississippi State, whichever one of those teams win. Florida has beaten LSU handedly because Florida was playing decent basketball. LSU had one of the best runs that they will ever have in school history, or at least SEC play. And I know I'm dramatic when I say school history, but they had one of the best runs that they're going to have all season, if not the best run they've had all season, considering all the context. And Florida still beat them by 14. Okay. Florida played Mississippi State, and I felt more comfortable with it the whole time, right? Ended up winning by 12, I think it was, 12-13. But Missouri is the game that I look at and I say, all right, you lost to Missouri. So personally, the team that I would be concerned with is Missouri. Of course, makes sense, right? And I say that because I don't want to do the thing that I want to do. The thing that I want to do is if Florida plays Missouri, then Florida is going to show up and beat the brakes off of them because Missouri's one of the teams that beat them. Florida should dominate, right? Like that should light a fire under you. You should dominate. One, that's just not how things work all the time. And two, this is a Florida Gators team that has had their fair share of, man, they just didn't really show up tonight, right? Like that, they've had that. They've had this fair share of, they just didn't really show up tonight. You pair that with the fact that by the time they play, it would have been essentially having a midweek bye, right? Because Florida last played this past Saturday against Ole Miss, and they play again on Friday. 6 days off. At least 6 days of not playing a game, whereas if it's LSU and Mississippi State, if you face either of those teams, they'd have played back-to-back days, which they could be more tired, but they've also been in a rhythm. Or Missouri, who is coming off one game played the day before, where even if they had a little bit of a rough game but still won, they would now have that rust shaken off. So I think that would be my biggest concern about not showing up. I do think Florida has all the makings to make a deep run in there. And the bracket that Florida would play if they beat whoever they play in that game would be either Oklahoma, Georgia, Kentucky, Alabama. Not an easy bracket, right? Obviously, Georgia, Kentucky, Alabama would be probably the toughest of the games. We saw what Florida did to Oklahoma when they played just a few weeks ago. We saw what Florida did to Alabama last week, and by what they did to them, I don't mean that they destroyed them, but they won in Tuscaloosa. Adds to it, right? But Georgia beat Florida the last time they played. Don't worry, Florida beat them by 30 the time before that. And Kentucky, Florida has only played Kentucky once this year. It was their first game in SEC play, and it was a 106-100 loss on the road, which was a crazy game. No other way to describe it. Just a crazy game where Florida just didn't play in the first half, and that was super fun. Where they go afterwards, you can't just not play for a half. Why'd you do it? Great answer, or great response there. So Florida SEC play opens up. Florida should be making a run, right? Like Florida should not be a team that gets bounced in their first round. They should be a team that makes the SEC championship, hopefully back-to-back years now, and hopefully builds momentum going into the NCAA tournament. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever in the podcast and on YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow talking more Florida Gators football. For Locked On Gators, find all my written work. Or for Locked On Gators, I should introduce myself, right? For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI, and I will see you all next time.